Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about why we're writing to begin with. So to make sure that we are on the same page as to why we're even in this course, or why this course I think is worth both of our times. In today's age of telecommunication and YouTube videos and documentaries and Netflix and instant streaming, it might seem like we're becoming less of a reading and writing culture and more of a recording and visual culture. Now, if you couldn't tell by the nature of my videos, I'm no expert. In fact, most of you could probably create much better videos than this. I'm not much older than you, but my cell phone is from 2007 and I've never snapshot myself across the internet. So, one thing that I do know though, because I use the internet as well, surprise, is that a lot of the great things you see on the web have a script behind them. They have some sort of writing backing them up. A lot of people who vlog for a living are doing so with scripts. Not a lot of people just fly off the cuff, unless maybe you're screaming at a video game. So for today I want to talk about why it is we're writing. You know, there was a time when if you created a great scientific discovery, you would publish it in a poem. Which is obviously not the case anymore, but still discoveries are published in academic journals, as well as philosophical arguments, ethical debates. All of this is still put down into writing. Why is that? Well, I want to talk to you about the difference between writing and speaking, and just give you a little bit of a crash course in linguistics if you're not familiar with it. So I put two words up on the board that I hope my head is not blocking. First is prescriptive, and second is descriptive. And now these two words symbolize what's called a spectrum in our language when you're talking about them from linguistics. So on the prescriptive side, so if you have a scale, a spectrum, right? On the prescriptive side, you have people who are very by the book, right? So if you're thinking prescriptive, think prescription, right? So prescriptive say language has to be a certain way. Language has to be correct, it has to be a certain way, so they're really careful about comma splices, split infinitives, all these rules of language that have been passed down through hundreds and hundreds of years. Whereas descriptive linguists, think description, right? They say language belongs to the speakers. So they say whatever people say describes their language, which is why we have words like ain't that are a part of our language, whereas before they were not, right? And language is always changing. So every year as a teacher I learn new words, right? Which I won't repeat on camera because I don't need that belonging there. But you hear students come in every single year and they have different words that are being used, and sometimes they get very, very popular and they continue to be used. Sometimes they're like YOLO, and thankfully they kind of die off, right? So these are the two opposite ends of language, and if you were to think, you know, the language debate or linguistic debate is dead, all you'd have to do is ask someone which one is correct, and you'd get a bunch of different answers because it is a spectrum, right? So maybe think about where do you sit here? Do you think everyone should be using the proper words all the time? That there is a difference between well and good? That you should not end a sentence with a preposition? You should know the difference between who and whom? If someone uses a word like, I don't know, there's words that make people angry, I can't think of them right now. But anyway, if you think that language has to be a certain way, maybe I can edit that out. If you think language has to be a certain way, you would be on the prescriptive side. If you think however I speak is how language should be, however the majority of people speak is how language should be, you would be on the descriptive side. For me, I kind of split the difference, which feels very lukewarm, but I argue that writing belongs over here, and that speaking belongs over here. There's certain regions of America that speak differently. They don't necessarily speak with a proper English. Very few dialects have a proper English. I mean, none really, maybe Harvard professors. But that doesn't mean their language is wrong. I'm making grammatical errors all the time when I'm speaking here. I'm taking out words that should be there. I'm speaking in incomplete sentences. So did Shakespeare's characters on stage. That doesn't mean it's necessarily wrong, it's serving a different purpose. If it's artistic or it's spoken, I'm much more on the descriptive side. But on the prescriptive side is where we put our writing. Now, what makes writing different from language? Why is it formal as opposed, or why is writing different from speaking? Why is it formal as opposed to informal? Well, the greatest difference is that writing is supposed to be this condensed form of thought. That if you were to put forth an argument in writing, you've taken time to do it. Right now, as I speak to you, I'm saying things that I wish I would have written down, right? I wish I would have maybe practiced more, but I can't take it back. And one of the reasons why speaking into a camera is very hard is because you can't gauge how the audience is reacting at this moment like you can with an actual person. When you speak, you have body language, you have if someone's looking away, you have if someone puts their head down, if they take out their phone, right? You have eye contact, you have the person with the ability to respond, and you can have a dialogue with them. All those things are great with speaking. With writing, it's not there. You prepare this argument, and then you send it out into the world, and it has to stand on its own. So when we write, we want to make sure our writing is as strong as possible. Now, I'm not talking about sending a text message here, or updating your Twitter account. I'm talking when you write something that you want to have value, you want to have a lasting effect on someone who reads it, and you want your name to be proudly behind it. That's when we talk about prescriptive writing. So in our course, we are going to really focus on writing in the quote-unquote proper way, and I don't want you to think that the proper way means that your way of speaking or your way of writing is wrong. It's not at all. It's just in an academic sense, I want you to be as well equipped as possible. So I want you to kind of think of that as we move forward. We will talk a little bit more about the theory of language, but most of this class is going to be very hands-on and precise in that. You do have a discussion post following this where I want you to just find someone whose writing you really care about, someone who writes an argumentative piece, so it's arguing for something, right? And I'll have more details in the description of the discussion, but someone who you really care about their writing. So maybe it's a journalist you really like, or if you have no clue, you're like, I don't know any journalists at all, maybe just find a topic you really like, read a couple articles on that topic, and figure out whose writing really stands out to you. And with that said, we'll move on to our second discussion post for the class, move right along through these modules, and then we'll move on to the next one. All right, thanks for listening.